All right, I want to talk a little bit about the effects of a lien. Remember I told you that we got all these powers and the rest of the book, we're going to take them away? A lien reduces your ability of disposition. Giving your property away is one of your rights. Unless you owe Fifth Third some money, mortgage, they may frown upon you giving it away if you owe money. So the whole purpose of what a lien does is it reduces the homeowner's ability to get rid of the property. In the very extreme case, it may completely get rid of that whole ability to get rid of a property. What if you owe 100 grand on a property and the value of your house has dropped to 80? You can't even sell the property to pay off the bank. In essence, you can't sell. All right? Now, I'm going to eliminate all those people that want to raise your hand and go, well, you could bring $20,000 to the table. Yes, you can, but that doesn't help me prove my point on this, okay? So eliminate all the ability of people potentially hitting the lottery and bringing money to the table. If you exclude that, it is possible that liens could fully reduce your ability to get rid of the property at all, because you could be upside down. So liens have the effect of reducing your disposition. Now, on page 224, I want to talk a little bit about how liens actually work. All right, so here we go. My mythical $150,000 house. I want to buy this house. I'm going to put down 50, and I'm going to go get a loan for $100,000. All right? Name of the bank. So I'm going to go get a loan from Fifth Third for $100,000, and I did it on January the 1st of 2011. It was the first lien that I put on my new property. So it has priority number one. Have you guys ever heard of the term first lien position? This is what we're talking about. A mortgage has first lien position. Or it's first. Or it's the senior one. That's another time somebody might say. Now, when I sell the house for $150 again, the first 100 pays off priority number one. They get the money first, even before I do. So if I sold this house for $150, I would pay Fifth Third their 100 back first. I would keep the $50,000 and move to the next house. That's a generic sale. Are we good there? All right. Now let's back up. Suppose I want to borrow some money because I want to go on a vacation. So I'm going to say I want to borrow some more money against my house. I'm going to go to PNC and borrow $50,000 more. But because I did it later, the date is now January the 1st of 2012. It goes in as what priority? Second, because the date is after the first one. So now I have a first lien and a second lien. Some people say a senior lien and a junior lien. Never really heard it called that. Normally it's a first and a second. All right? So if I sell my house now for $150, who gets the first money? Fifth Third gets the first $100,000, but I still owe $50 more to the second. They get second money, so they get the next $50, And I get how much? Nothing, right? Because I had to pay my first lien off, had to pay the second lien off, and I get nothing. Why did I pay the first and second off? Why didn't I just leave them? Let's see how good you can process this information. What did the buyer ask for when he came in? Think back several chapters. This is like your final exam. I know you've been gone over the weekend. He wanted clear title, remember? Remember what a general warranty deed says? I want you to remove all the liens that you can. So I said, yes, I would. So I've got to remove those liens. That's why I'm doing it. Otherwise, I just take 150 and go to Hawaii. But I can't, because the general deed that he asked for that I promised said I would clear all of the liens. All right, so I got to pay the first one, got to pay the second one. I walk away with nothing. I start over. Right? All right, let's add some more, and you can see where we're going with this. So I have some work done on my property, and I don't like the work, so I don't pay it. It was an HVAC company, HVAC, for 10 grand. I had it done at the beginning of this year. It's now the third lien, so it gets priority number 3. So now someone says, do you want to sell your property? I said, yes, it's worth 150. I had it appraised. They said, okay, I'll give you 150 for it. So I pay off the first for 100. I've got to pay the second, because it's second priority, for 50. Oops. I got a third lien I owe, but I have no money. I cannot sell this property. All right? Not under this scenario. Don't jump into the, well, you could bring 10 grand. Yes, I could bring 10 grand to the table, or I could get it, hopefully it appraises for 170 or 80. Yes. But what I'm showing you here is this is an exact example of how the liens can limit your ability to sell the property, because I owe more money than it's worth. I'm upside down on this property. This kind of is what happened in 2009. People borrowed 100%, so they borrowed 150 for a house that was worth 150. Then all of a sudden the value dropped to 140, and now they're upside down and they couldn't sell, and they started panicking, and that's when you got into all the foreclosures and short sales, and there's some other reasons why, but basically that's the whole concept. Are we good? Now, let's play some more. I'm going to remove the third lien and go back to the first 2 liens. So now Fifth Third calls me and they're like, Raymond, you're an excellent person and a good candidate. And I say, well, of course I am. That's not funny, man. Don't laugh. We want to refinance our loan with you for 0% interest. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. Remember what a refinance is. A refinance is a legal sale with a repurchase. That is a key idea that you guys better learn and keep in your mind for the rest of your career, because it's very important you understand what refinance means. Refinance is a legal sale of the property with a repurchase by yourself. You're selling the property to yourself again. If you remember back when we talked about how husbands and wives could get on and off the deed, this is how it happened. If I was married, got divorced, and I refinanced the property, now that I'm single, that's a sale with a repurchase by just me, not my ex-wife now. That's how you would get them off the property, because it's a legal sale with a repurchase. Okay? So Fifth Third calls and says, we want to refinance you. I say, okay. So I sell my first lien, but now I have a second lien because of the date it came in. It was second, that PNC. Guess what happens to that second lien? You guys ever play Jenga? And you pull one out and they all slide down? Or Tetris, or any of those? This second lien now moves to first, because I just pulled the first out of the slot, and fifth third comes with today's date. Let's just make up a day. But since that date is after that date, it now is given priority 2, PNC, which was second, now slides up to 1. Everybody see what happened? 1 came out, 2 slid in its place, 1 went back in. Imagine me standing in line for the Star Wars movie, and I'm number 1. Maggie comes in and stands behind me at number 2. I step out of line to go to the bathroom. Where should I come back in? Behind her now, because she slid up to the first position. I now come in right behind her. All right? That's what we're talking about. Mathematically, are we still okay? Because I owe 150 and the house is worth 150. So in this scenario, if I sold the house, who gets paid first? The $50,000 property. Who gets paid second? The $100,000. But what happens if the value drops down to 140? I pay the first off of 50. I don't have enough money to now pay the new loan that came around in second, right? So while the math works out at I still owe 150, Fifth Third is not real happy with this situation. I'm not real happy. I'm behind Maggie. All right? But Maggie, being the nice person that she is, says, I understand, Raymond, that you were actually here before me, so what I'm going to do is allow you to go back in front of me and become first in line. On page 224 is a word called a subordination agreement. That's what's going to happen in this scenario. Has anybody ever had a second lien on your property? What's the interest rate on your second compared to your first? It's a lot more. Seconds get paid to take the risk. Because if the value of the property moves, they could potentially be out of money. They get paid for that. And would they know that? We know that. The government knows that. So the first and the second have what they call a subordination agreement that allows this to actually happen. Fifth Third moves back to priority 1. PNC moves back to priority 2, even though the dates don't reflect that. So here's all of that story leads up to this one piece of information. Liens get recorded by date. They get paid off by priority. Priority equals date unless there's a subordination agreement between the properties or the people. So even though the Fifth Third that I just refinanced comes in at a later date, you would think it looks junior to the other one, but because the agreement allows them to swap, Fifth Third is back in first. Now when I sell the property, who gets first? Fifth Third gets the first lien because they're first priority. Even though their date's recorded second, that agreement allowed them to do that. And before anybody asks, subordination agreements mandated inside a second lien. They have to do it. All right, it's not just because it's voluntary. PNC, when they took the loan out to be a second lien, they knew they were second. In that lien, in that mortgage, there's a subordination agreement. So PNC didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart.
Something otherwise, like Fifth Third would not want you to refinance.
Oh, we're going to get there. We're going to get to that scenario where Fifth Third won't want you to refi. No, it just means first. That's a good point. Theoretically, my first lien could have been 20 grand, my second lien been 180 grand, and they still have, it has to do with who was first, who's second, and the interest rate they get paid. It's not really because it's the most money, but typically most everybody in the world's first lien's the biggest because it's the one they used to purchase the property.
So when you go get the refinancing, then Fifth Third would have gone to PNC and said, hey, we're refinancing this house, we want to remain the number one priority, should we sign this?
When I signed the PNC loan, there was a clause inside of the mortgage with PNC that said they would allow subordination to the current first lien holder. So when they got recorded, and then when the title company went to pull the documents when I sold it, they would have seen that and went, oh, there's another one. Oh, here it is. We'll move it in front. Even though the date on the Fifth Third is 5 years later, it looks junior to the first lien, but it's really not because the agreement allows it to be.
So the homeowner can't hide stuff, so to say, it's out there.
No, the homeowner can't hide stuff. Remember, because they record this, even though recording has nothing to do with actual ownership, I told you everybody has an interest in recording it. Here's where the interest plays out. The banks want it recorded because they want that lien on record so that you can't tell Joe here, hey, I'll sell you my house, it's free and clear, and sell it to him and walk away, and the bank goes, wait a minute, you own this money. So they record that lien at the time of the sale. Doesn't make it valid, doesn't make the sale valid or invalid, recording. It just has an interest so that everybody knows that.
A lien on a house is different, like a second lien is different from just going and getting a bank loan, right? Like you have to say, you could put this lien on my house. Like if you go get a bank loan for a car or like a boat or something, it's different.
Those are completely different because we're dealing with real property.
Oh.
All right?
Well, then with the $50,000 for a vacation, why would that be a lien?
Because I'm using my house as the collateral. Yes, the $50,000 I borrowed, I could be doing anything with in this scenario. I could go buy a bank. I could go buy another. I theoretically could go buy a piece of land if I wanted to. That land would be free and clear over here because the lien is on that property. And we'll talk about mortgages and how they differ tomorrow on that. All right, but the fact is you are using the house as the collateral for the loan. That's where the lien would go to. I could take that 50 grand and buy a condo in Florida. They would not put the lien on the one in Florida because the house in Indiana is the collateral. All right? Let me stop this and go to another audio file.